Okay, just showing a little bit of the after effects. I think I did pretty well. My feet are a bit irritated. I used a lot of Leukotape today in particular, a little bit the last couple of days, but definitely today, to look after my feet. And with the wet socks out there, it's particularly challenging. But made it through and got the miles in, and I'm going to do a further assessment here in a bit. But this is what feet look like after a few tough days of hiking, at least my feet. Well, Amtrak's waiting to drive through, but here's a giant cargo train just sitting on the tracks. So that'll be a little bit. So, currently on the Empire Builder near Malta, Montana, heading westbound, going home to Washington State. Wanted to share, it's been quite 24 hours since I got off the trail. Wanted to share some reflections at this point. First off, it was a great trail. It is a great trail. I had a blast out there. I was happy to be done yesterday. I'm still happy to be resting today, but I miss it as well. It was, even looking out at the buttes on this trip, as I go westbound, I can just imagine being up on those. So yeah, great trail. Definitely recommend checking it out. Really have a lot of gratitude for people who helped make this trip possible. From a logistical perspective, folks like Speedy Cab out of Watford City. They helped me yesterday get off the trail and did a great job of that. They didn't just pick me up at the highway, that was our original plan, but they actually came to CCC campground and met me almost before I could react. I was like, oh, they're here. It was great. I didn't have to walk an extra mile. I was already pretty tired. So they were amazing. Of course, Jen from Dakota Cyclery, I mentioned her on the videos, expert on trail knowledge, conditions, real-time info, and of course getting people around and knowing what they need. So she's an amazing resource out there. And really her sage advice helped me complete this trail. One of the key things that didn't work out for me last year was the water. This year I filtered all water that I got out of any wells out there, and here I am. Did just fine. So thank you, Jen, for that. Also want to mention Mike from Taxi Cruisers out of Dickinson, where I flew into. Mike gave me a ride both times to Medora, my trip last year and this trip, and he's a joy, he's a pleasure, he's a really great guy to meet, so definitely recommend him as well. In the video I included contact info for these folks if you decide to go out on the trail and you want to use them. Oh, by the way, Jen also put water out, she and her company, for me in various spots, so you saw those water gallons on the trail, and they were critical to my planning and how I hike the trail. So definitely recommend doing that if you do this trail, unless you're into other options like getting lucky that somebody might give you water, or possibly filtering water out of some of the sources that aren't so good. But I certainly didn't want to unless it was a life or death situation. But yeah, I just have a lot of gratitude. I'd add the Maah Daah Hey Trail Association to that. I gave them a donation before getting out there, and they do an incredible job. I know there were a few areas where I remarked it wasn't so good and easy to navigate, but overall the trail is really easy to follow, and kind of just can lose your mind in following the poles out there, and just be in a great flow. So I love that about any trail. This trail in particular has a lot of those elements for a vast majority of it. It is a tough trail. I did the Wonderland Trail as a through hike, and this was like split up over 2 years, so I don't call what I did on the Maah Daah Hey a through hike, but I learned a lot in year one that helped year two. But I found this more challenging than the Wonderland Trail. Wonderland Trail has far more elevation gain and loss, but this trail throws a lot of different types of challenges at you. And so I think the mental game here at the Maah Daah Hey, it teaches you a lot. And for that, I'm thankful. I wanted to talk a little bit about the turtle. I actually carried this on the trail. I don't know what it weighs. I'm going to add it to my pack weight, I suppose. It's probably an ounce, maybe 2, which is more than I'd want. But these, the turtle is on all of the poles out there on the Maah Daah Hey Trail, and the turtle comes from the Lakota Sioux Indian tribe. The turtle symbolizes firm determination, steadfastness, patience, long life, and fortitude. And that was off the U.S. Forest Service website definition of the turtle out there on the trail, because the trail in many cases embodies these things. Like, in order to hike the trail or ride the trail, you've got to have those qualities, and it helps build those in you to complete it. So I would definitely agree with that assessment. I think that's aptly named. I would put patience as my number one learning on this particular hike. Having the patience to hike water source to water source and not just go for it, which I do enjoy doing at times, until that last day when I kind of let it fly, put the hammer down, so to speak. This trail had periodic mental puzzles. You can see those in going back over the videos, but things like, how do I route find in a national park, and dodge bison herds and other things while you're doing it. Yesterday's final day challenge of having a trail through a flat grassy area where you had what looked like not a very clear tread, overgrown, and then a whole bunch of animal trails and trails that people have used as well, going off in all these different directions. So it looked like a 5-headed trail, and it's really hard to follow that. So making sure you've got plenty of GPS options, I think, is important out there. So I was using National Geographic Trails Illustrated, which has a great map layer for the Maah Daah Hey, but it's not super high definition. I had to switch that off and go to a different map layer. I think it was a USGS layer that was much more detailed when I got into that area in order to be able to navigate. So there's stuff like that, the water crossings that I think are more challenging this year, this fall, than normal. Certainly more challenging than they were last year. The weather, trying to figure out the weather and how to play that, just a bunch of things. So I'll touch on those a little more as I go here. But those periodic mental puzzles really make you stop and assess in order to keep going ultimately on this trail. So covered the map sets. Make your feet your number one priority. At least for me, this is one of my big hiking lessons that I've had to learn over the years. I try to protect my feet at all costs. What you didn't see in the last video is 3 stops I made to put Luco tape on my feet to try to protect them from blistering. I ended up with a couple of blisters at the end, but overall they both had Luco tape on them, so they weren't too bad. And overall, I think it was a success. Really hard, I couldn't keep them dry, as you saw, multiple days in a row. But I did change my socks out on that last day. My sock liners, I had a different pair that once my feet got wet after hiking up on a butte, I was able to take those off and put on a drier pair, and that helped, I think, as well manage blisters. Bring extra socks. I meant to bring 2 pairs. I wear 2 pairs of socks. The sock liners from a Gingy, and then a heavier Darn Tough sock on the outside. I meant to bring 2 pairs of the Darn Toughs, and I didn't. I brought 1. So just messed up packing. So definitely bring enough socks, because I would have used 2 dry socks together yesterday if I had them. Okay, so getting back to it. Had a minor interruption there on the train. We're back moving. All right, so long water carries. Water boxes are really the key out there, in my opinion, and the campgrounds. I would just filter the water in the campgrounds. It's the safest bet. But water boxes and getting water out to the water boxes can really cut down on your water carry distance, and that can be a big deal. especially in the last 35 miles of the trail, it's all water boxes as water options, at least safe water options. There are no campgrounds except for Bennett. If you shoot off to Bennett, which is an extra like 6 miles round trip, you could do that, but still you're going to have some pretty long water carries. So yeah, I'm thinking in the future, if I go back to the Maah Daah Hey, I might even rent a car the day before and drop a lot of water in a lot of different places. It was great to hire Jen to do that, and she was able to get water into several boxes, she and her company, but there were some that they couldn't get to either because it was a wet summer and they weren't able to drive those roads at the right time. So just things to consider, but the water boxes are key. Don't overlook those. If you start at the southern terminus, Jen will help you. You just bring your water and you can drop your water. All of the water boxes go into the southern terminus. So that's what I did last year, and that worked out really well. Solitude. This is a quiet trail. I mean, the first time I was out there, I remember I didn't see somebody for the first day and a half. And then you get into some more populated areas on the southern part of the trail. As you get closer to Medora, like Sully Creek Park is a campground you walk right through, stuff like that. But on the northern end, where I was this last time, I saw 3 trail runners who were just getting out of their cars, getting ready to go. 1 mountain biker twice yesterday, and that's it. Those are the people I saw. I saw some hunters up on a bluff. I saw people in the campgrounds, yes, but not trail users. So it's very quiet, and to me that's a real benefit of being out there, but it's just something to be aware if that's something that gets to you. Bring a friend or consider other options. I would say logistical planning is key for this trail. You got to figure out how you're going to get to it, how you're going to get off of it, how you're going to get water in the right places, and your food situation as well. So I'd say logistics are a big deal, and just consider all that. And then of course, even where are you starting on the trail? South end, north end, and what's the easiest way to get there? Depends on where you're coming from, of course, but in my case, I flew there and I'm taking the train back home. I love trains, so I would take the train there and the train back home, but that would put me in and out of Williston, and maybe someday I'll do a yo-yo where I do the whole trail and then backtrack it, but wasn't up for that this year, didn't have that kind of time. I recommend using YouTube for research, obviously look at websites as well. But, oh, by the way, these clothes, I sent a resupply package, so to speak, a package to the hotel in Williston. So that's how I got these for riding the train, because my other stuff stinks. So keep that in mind. But yeah, I used YouTube quite a bit to do research this time. There's a person out there called the Stable Cyclist. His name is JP. And I mentioned this is a mountain biking trail. He put out, he streamed the Maah Daah Hey 100 race, which goes from the northern terminus down to Medora, and he's been putting out sections of that. So if you watch that GoPro footage, you could basically follow and see the entire trail through that area, that at least the entire trail that was used by the mountain bikers. Some differences in certain cases, but very helpful to be able to watch that before coming out here, just to gauge up, water sources and a few other things in case there was an emergency, and just to get a sense for what the real trail conditions are like. Keep in mind, organized campgrounds can be noisy. I experienced that a couple of nights in a row. The first night wasn't as bad as the second, or as challenging as the second. The first night, I had a nice spot. It was way down. You probably saw this in the video, by the entrance, real close to the trail. Got all my stuff, all my water and everything, all down there, and it was a Friday night, and after dark, in came a number of vehicles, and I ended up with some people camping next to me who came in late and left early, like got up at 4 a.m. I was going to get up at 5:15 or something, so that was, I don't know, I'm guessing they were hunters or something, but that was challenging that they were right next to me, because there were other sites up through the campground, and then a camper that came in, there was a few sites up as well. They were not as loud, but the folks right next to me, unfortunately, cut into my sleep a little bit. When you're on a hike like this, sleep's pretty valuable, so that was challenging night. The second night, though, more challenging. A bunch of hunters gathered, and I must admit, there's some great people out there too. Had a couple who came up to me and just said, anything you need, water, food, anything, like if one person's going into town, like we can get it to you. So that was very, very nice of them. I was just fine at that point, but there are people out there like that, but there are also people out there who will, we're in a government shutdown period too, who will party well beyond the quiet hours. And in one case, we had somebody shoot off a shotgun at like 10:30 at night. Some hunters who went out and got frustrated because I guess the weather wasn't very good, so they came back and they started drinking. And there you go. So organized campgrounds and noise. Just be prepared for noise. Bring some earplugs. And if you can, unless you're super social, you can always join the party, but try to camp at one of those sites that's maybe a little more isolated. With that in mind, water at the campgrounds, you've seen on my videos, and others have filmed this as well, there are hand pumps. The one at Magpie is the most challenging. It requires, I was told, about 80 pumps to get it to flow. I was counting. I think I got to 70, so maybe it's a high water year, a little easier. I did notice that once I got it to flow once, it was maybe 20, 25 pumps to get it to flow the next time, as long as I did all my water kind of one after the other and filtered it that way. So that was good, but it was still a project. The other one was Elkhorn. That one was quite a bit easier. The ones on the south end, as I recall, were fairly easy and flowed pretty fast. So just something to keep in mind. Definitely take precautions for hunters. I saw a lot more hunters on this one, and it may just be the section of trail that I did the first time I was out. I mentioned the story of the hunters on the butte who kind of spotted me and I spotted them, and I ended up following the trail and going behind another small butte or small hill, and I heard 3 gunshots. So they were just waiting for me to clear before they took their shots. So definitely wear bright clothing. I made a point to not night hike. I made a point to, I have a camouflage fleece, and I made a point not to make that my outer layer on this trail. I would wear my rain jacket, which is super bright, or my bright blue sun hoodie that I brought as well. So try to keep it bright if you're out here in October during hunting season, or any time of year during hunting season. Weather awareness. This is another key one for the Maah Daah Hey. The weather is dramatic, it can change quickly. It doesn't really matter what season. But I've done this twice in the fall, and I've kept a close eye on weather forecasts. I've downloaded Garmin forecasts pretty much once or twice a day to try to get an idea of what's coming. And when I'm up on a butte, I'll download like a National Weather Service forecast for that area as well. So just try to get all that weather awareness together, because that's going to be really critical to planning your day in terms of what you wear, what you have easily available, where you camp, how your plans might get curtailed by the weather, and how that might change your water strategy, how it might change your entire hike. All these things to keep in mind. Also keep in mind you have cell service on a lot of the buttes, the higher grassy areas that flow on for a while. So that can be a real advantage to getting information like I just mentioned, changing travel plans, communicating with loved ones, those kinds of things. Campsite selection. So to me this is really critical. You're out there in a tent, and I tried to find campsites that were sheltered from the wind. That was my primary thing. And so I was using the forecast, trying to figure out where the wind was going to come from, at least the worst wind of that particular evening. And then ideally I'd have hard cover, meaning a hill or something blocking the wind, but if not, some really thick vegetation. So campsite selection's, I think, really critical. I was not going to camp on a butte unless it was like down in a ditch or something. Of course, you got to think about runoff if it rains, and so you just got a variety of things to think about. You want to be careful about out there. Water on the trail. So you saw some of the creek crossings, and of course when it rains your feet are going to get wet, but some of those are really challenging, and you should probably plan for your feet to be wet out there if it's at all a wet year, or if it rains while you're out there. So just keep that in mind. It can also get extremely muddy. I got really lucky on this hike because yes, it rained, and yes, it was coming in sideways, but it was like a sideways hard mist, and you can see a lot of the areas where it would just be mud if there was heavy rain and clay, and it'd just be really hard consideration in planning your hike. And of course, fording the Little Missouri, the last time I did it, it was on stones. This time it was up to my thighs. So that's just, the way it was this year. When it rains, one of the things Jen mentioned to me is pitch your tent, wait it out, and wait a few hours. And the trail should dry out and you should be good to go at that point. So keep that in mind if it's a heavier rain. I feel like I got really lucky. I was up on a butte for 3 miles. I was able to hike on the side of the trail a fair amount, stay out of the clay, muddy areas mostly. Even with that, it was building up on my shoes at times. I had to try to kind of scrape it off on the grass and where I could knock it off. But I could feel it. I could feel my feet were heavier. So that's definitely a factor. And I'm sure that gets worse and worse and worse if you stay out there. So I got really lucky with my rainy day, but you get a day with multiple rains that day, or multiple rains that last for several days in a row. It can really curtail your plans out there. But yeah, when in doubt, pitch if you have a good spot to pitch. If you don't have super high wind, which was part of my challenge too. I might have pitched as soon as it started, but I was just coming up on a butte. I could have turned around. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to just keep going as far as I could. So it worked out in my case on this trip. Be ready for all conditions. You saw on this trip, it was 84 degrees on day 2. And then it was 37 degrees in the morning on the last morning. And the wind chills were much lower than that for both days 3 and 4. So just be ready for all conditions. Look at the forecast before you come out. Pack the best you can. I had a 20-degree quilt, and in the end I could have gotten away with my 30-degree quilt, but that would have been on my mind a lot because some of the low temperatures originally were forecasted to be quite a bit lower, and that could turn out really disastrous. So make sure you have some margin for error in your plans as well. Have flexible plans. That's one of the things I enjoyed on this trip that I learned last year was I have been planning my trips where like every day needs to go a certain way for the trip to be a success. And I left myself more time than I thought I would need to do this trail in order to have that extra fallback time, if you will. In the end, I didn't really need it. I was able to kind of move everything up on the last butte, but I had that option, and that's helpful. I didn't have that previously, so be flexible in your plans. And it's also nice taking a train back because you can switch train reservations really fast, which is what I did. Enjoy the beauty out there. It's hard because you're on a trail and you're trying to make miles sometimes to stop and just enjoy it. But if you're going to take a break, try to take it in a beautiful spot. And I love to film partly because I can go back and watch a lot of what I'm seeing and really take it in even more. But it's just incredibly beautiful. Yesterday there was time when there was no wind, there was no sound at all. I especially love that. That's really, really unique in the world when you get into those places. Lastly, on the trail, just savor the trail when you're out there. I was trying to do that as much as possible. Just soak it in. Support it when you can. Even knocking branches off the trail as you're walking there. I did some of that. Picked up a little bit of trash. Give a donation to the Maah Daah Hey Trail Association if you're able. And respect the trail. This trail means business. It's one tough trail. It's going to push you. It's going to cause you to have to problem solve in ways that you might not on other trails. The weather is going to put you in some bad, challenging situations. You just need to respect it. Do your research, plan it out, leave some margins for error, leave some flexibility, and you're going to have a good time out there. Wanted to look ahead a little bit. So 2026, next year, this is kind of the wind down of my season of big things, if you will, that I'm doing. I'm going to do some winter hikes. I'll probably put some of those up on YouTube. I've got a great group of hiking friends. You've seen them on my videos, so I'm sure we're going to get out. In fact, we have a hike planned, I think, on the 26th. I don't know if I'll film that, but that's just in a couple of weeks. But with that said, my bigger plans for next year, tentative right now, but the PCT southbound, I'm working on that. I want to do another 3 weeks on the PCT, ideally, assuming I can fit it into my work schedule, to go from Rainy Pass down to at least White Pass. So that's my big trip for next year, all staying in the state of Washington. And then I'll do many other smaller trips in Washington and the North Cascades. And that's really it. So if if you're still listening to this video, thanks for listening. I hope if you go out to do the Maah Daah Hey Trail, that this has been helpful to you from a hiker perspective. There's plenty of mountain biking information out there, but not as much hiking information. So I hope my videos are instructive and helpful to you. I hope this info's been good, and I hope my channel's a benefit to you. I film for YouTube for a couple of reasons. One, just so I can put my own videos and memories somewhere where I can go back and watch, and I can also share those with my family and friends. I have those folks, a lot of them on the East Coast and kind of scattered about the country, so it's kind of a fun way to stay in touch and have some good conversation topics when I see people and whatnot. So that's one reason, kind of just my own purposes. But the other reason is so the people who come after me have hopefully a little better knowledge, a little bit more experience mentally at least of a place, and can be more prepared when they go out. And the third thing is for people who can't get out. I feel very, very fortunate I'm able to get out and do these things. For a lot of reasons, people aren't able to do that. I hope that these videos give those folks an experience of being out there, an experience of that particular journey that I had. So YouTube's kind of wondrous in that way, and that's why I put my videos out, and I hope you enjoy this channel. Appreciate all of you who are subscribers and watch routinely, and more to come in the future. Thanks again for joining me on another one of Charlie's hikes. In this particular case, one of Charlie's backpacking trips. Be well. Have a good winter, everyone.